Well, with more, Minister Patty Hajdu joins us right now. Minister, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
So we heard right there a bit of your initial reaction to the news, but now that you've had more time to absorb it, I'm wondering if you might talk to us about how you're feeling right now with this decision.
Well, I think it's not so much about how I'm feeling, really. It's about the reflection that I had in the lobby, which is how First Nations people are feeling, and in particular, the First Nations partners that worked so hard on proposing this agreement to the tribunal. You know, we had a very strong agreement in principle for the compensation portion of this historic $40 billion settlement. And I think there are some disappointed people in the country and certainly amongst the partners that were negotiating collaboratively with us. For me, now it's time for us to all contemplate what the next steps could possibly be, because I think there's a deep commitment from all the parties to get to the place of a compensation regime that continues to be First Nation designed and led and delivered in a way that respects the autonomy and decision making of First Nations people to do that work.
Now, and again, you mentioned it right there, but this goes to the compensation portion, less about the investment, but more about the compensation. And on that part, the tribunal seems to be saying that the government has not met its order to compensate all who've been affected as children. Why not just accept that decision and pay the money to the individuals that the tribunal feels is currently left out?
Well, again, I'll just go back to the point that this compensation regime was worked on and led, indeed, by First Nations parties, and really reflecting the complexity of the many different kinds of scenarios that children face and have faced in a systemically discriminatory child welfare regime like the one that Canada has been party to for forever, really. I think the next steps are really trying to understand how we get to a space where the tribunal feels that its orders are satisfied, but also continuing to respect that First Nations leadership. And so I know that work we're committed to doing, the government is committed to doing, and my sense is that the parties are as well. And so it means that we refine this agreement and we look for ways to make this agreement work so that we can get to that place where everyone is comfortable that children who have been removed are being compensated.
Well, to that, Cindy Blackstock, of course, of the Caring Society, she says the decision doesn't stop the compensation for those who already qualify. She says you could go ahead, pay out that money to those who are expecting it, and then move forward and negotiate the rest separately. What's your response to that?
Well, we're examining the decision, and we will be examining the underlying arguments that the tribunal has made for the summary decision as soon as we get them. As you know, the tribunal provided a summary decision, but there's a lot of work behind that, and we'll be exploring really every scenario with partners about how best to get to that goal, which is to provide compensation for those historic harms and discrimination, but also not to lose sight of the other work that is ongoing, by the way, on the child welfare reform. And so I know this is a disappointing day for many people, but I can tell you that from the government's perspective, we're there for the long haul. We're going to be there to make sure that children who were removed from care and who suffered those historic and discriminatory situations and outcomes actually get the compensation to which they deserve.
I'm quickly losing time, so I'm going to ask for a quick answer here. But again, the government accepts that harm has come to those who, as children, experienced child welfare on reserve. Those who are now stepping forward that the number needs to be increased. Why not just compensate those numbers in totality instead of spending the money arguing it in court?
Look, this commitment by the federal government, this historic $40 billion commitment, it stands. There is still that money on the table. And we are, as I said, reviewing the summary decision. As soon as we have the background information from the CHRT, we'll continue to review that material. And we'll work with partners to get to a solution that is indeed, continues to be First Nations led and First Nations designed. I just want to return to that point for one moment because it's so critical, that any compensation regime is indeed designed by First Nations people who have the lived experience and the expertise to be able to ensure that the compensation unfolds in a way that doesn't in any way unintentionally harm people, as we've seen in previous compensation regimes. And I just want to thank those parties for really working so hard. I know there's a lot of disappointment today, but I think that there is a solution and we're going to find one together.
Minister Hajdu, we're out of time, but I really want to thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you very much.